Hey, what's going on, guys? So today we're going to talk about the changes or the new cards that pop up. So, an idea popped into my head. Now, I've heard about Otk Mage before from Copperpitch. He made a deck before. I think when Stormfield actually was updated, he made an Otk Mage deck. I was like so fascinated with that concept, and unfortunately, the cards that he used were quite expensive. So it's not something I could actually build. So I was thinking, like, what is a better way to do this, right? And now we have the core refresh set, and I think it's more doable now than ever. Especially for us guys who are actually on a tight budget. So the only thing I haven't even finalized yet in terms of build is how to properly control the board, right? Because you need to complete the set, you need to be able to build the OTK before you can even do the insta-kill in one turn. So first off, we're going to talk about, how do you make that happen, right? So the idea here is the cheap OTK deck. So what I'm proposing here are mostly cheap cards that are mostly part of Divine Order Core. And so you will need 6 minions by default because you will need to use these 6 minions to be boosted by Stormfield. So definitely this is your number one key core card that you need, and it's part of the Divine Order set. So this is updated like I think last month, and it's priced at around $1, which is very cheap. So you can buy a couple if you don't have one yet. So it will give minions spell boost. Now, the interesting thing here is that they are introducing these new cards. So Blizzard Bolt is one of the new cards that's coming in the refresh, and it's costing us 2 mana, and it will deal 3 damage. Now that's key there because it's you're gonna be able to deal 3 damage directly to the hero or the god, which is what we're looking for. So this was one of the problems I had before because the cheapest one I could get was Worm Breath, which is a core set card, which is only 40 cents, which still is an option, but it makes it a little bit more difficult because it costs 4 mana. So yeah, that's one thing. Blizzard Bolt will actually make it more easier because it's only like 2 mana. Then what I'm proposing here is Ether Snap, because Ether Snap is a spell that produces static ether bugs. And static ether bugs are these creatures that actually deal 1 damage, for an enemy character if you cast a spell, which is great because if you manage to drop, so Ether Snap will drop 2, and you can actually drop, you can add in a static ether bug. You're gonna have a requirement of 2 of each of these. Then that will fill up your board for 6 1/1 static ether bugs. And whenever you cast your spell boost, so that'll deal 6 damage to wherever, then additional 6 damage again to wherever. Well, it's more. It's 6 damage again. So Stormfield, then you do your Blizzard Bolt. So you'll deal an additional, 6 times 4, 24 damage. So it's an extra damage if, let's say, the enemy has something on the board, right? And you want to make sure to get everything done, right? Or let's say, for example, you couldn't complete it, but maybe you can fulfill the ether bug requirement, then that can actually make you do the ODK if in case the enemy doesn't have anything on the board. So, but yeah, we're not gonna rely on that, but it's something of an added damage that you could add in, and this is why it's there. This is why I'm proposing it to be in the list, and these are all the cards that you need to fulfill the OTK. Now you'll see that the total mana cost that you'll need is actually at 16 mana, which is quite a lot. So which is why you will need to have this mandatory requirement of spell reductions. Now before we get into that, so what are the alternatives first that you can use for Blizzard Bolts, right? So as I mentioned earlier, Worm Breath is one. Flame of the Second Shattering, which is going to be a new card as well, which is actually more damaging if if the fight tend to go as far as 9 mana, then definitely this is a better card compared to Worm Breath because you will deal 8 damage instead of 4. There are older cards that are a little bit more expensive, like Ancient Text and Form of Unity, which are also very good cards. Form of Unity, I think, is the best card here out of all the bunch, but of course, in terms of cost, Ancient Text would be it. But yeah, it's not gonna make the ODK requirement, because the ODK requirement, if you're gonna calculate it, like you need at least 3 damage from the Blizzard Bolt. Then Stormfield will give you additional 12 damage. So you cast Blizzard Bolt twice, that will give you 15 damage per cast. But the Ancient Text will give you 2 damage less, which might not work. So you might need to consider something else. But Forum of Unity is probably the best one out there. If you can afford one, then yeah, go ahead, take Forum of Unity. This is what Copperpitch was using in his OTK deck, which is very strong because it deals 1 damage per creature on board. So if you have 5 or more, it will deal 9 damage, which is crazy. So OTK indeed. Now for the Ether Bag, Ether Snap, if in case you don't have one, since they're going to be new cards, so you might not get it. So market wise, I'm assuming that these are going to be expensive on the initial, like most of the cards. So you know, up to you if you want to buy those, if they're expensive on the get-go. But if not, then you can opt for these, Wicked Fae or Card Shark. Wicked Fae is a 2 mana cost that summons another imp. So it's a 2/1/1, but it costs 2 mana. That's the thing. That's the only concern I have with Wicked Fae. So you can probably go for Card Shark, like 2 Card Sharks. Then you will have 4 units on the board. Then you could probably add, like, let's say the 1 mana, 1/3, 1 spell boost unit, Street Conjurer. You can pick Street Conjurer instead of a Static Ether Bug. Then you put in a couple of Card Sharks. Then yeah, you're good to go. So that's another way to do it, and that adds, you know, additional spell boost to your card. So that's an option. So at least this concept is very flexible. So yeah, so the mandatory requirement. So you need to have spell reduction, as I mentioned, because the spell mana cost, you can't do that everything in one turn, right? So you will need certain cards. So the cheap ones that I would recommend would be Morgana's Grimoire. So this is a core card. It's only 2 mana. It's a weapon. So it's an ability to reduce spell cost by 1 that are on your hand. And Helpful Aether Fox is the new core card that actually reduces 3 mana or less spells on hand to 0, which is fairly good. Then there's also an option to go for Scholar of Power, which is a Divine Order card, but it's a 7 mana card. And it has, I think, a 6/6 body, which is pretty big, but guarantees you to do a reduction of 2 at least. Because by default, this unit has Spell Boost 2, but I haven't tried this out yet, so the way I understood it is that it will have a minimum of 2 because it has a default of spell boost 2. But if you have more than 1 spell boost additional on your board on top of the Scholar of Power, then you could probably potentially reduce the cost of your cards even more. So that's also an option as well. So that's why I put it in here, because it's very cheap. It's only 6 cents. Now there are also other alternatives like Warp Engineer, but it will cost you $12. And Merlin, of course, it's a legendary. It's gonna cost you $6 to $8. But yeah, if you have them in your set, then yeah, these can be options as well to help you reduce the cost on your cards. Now the only trouble right now is how do you survive, right? So this is something I'm still working on. By default, what I'm seeing in most mages is that they will have their big units, like the frontline units, right? So they will have like the City Planner, they will have Labyrinth Guard, they will have Bronze Gates, they will have Hoplites or whatnot. There's going to be a new one, Unacceptable Monstrosity, which is a 9 mana cost card. It's kind of like the Dragon, only difference is, of course, the ward that it has doesn't really refresh. But damn, that's a very big card too. It's a Mystic as well, so it's a 9 mana 12/12 frontline protected and ward, which is insane. So you can use that and as part of your tank front lines. So you will probably need mana unlocks if you want to try and rush this. So since if you don't want to take the fight too long, so that's also an option. The cards that I was thinking about for mana unlocks are Crystal Watcher, Sip of Elixir. You also have the Frog, right? So those are the mana unlocks creatures that you can add in. Then you'll have to add other spells like AoEs, like Tornadoes. Your static electricity, whatever AoEs that deals 3 damage to creatures and whatnot. So it's still something I'm working on. I still need to think about. But what I thought about initially is the cost to actually make first the OTK requirement. Then so the next thing I'm gonna update about this deck is what exactly are the cards we would need to survive throughout the process up until we actually complete the OTK. So that's the challenge. Alright, so hopefully this helps you out, guys. So this is one set that I'm really keen on trying to make it work. And the next set that I'm going to be looking at would be Light, because Light has quite a number of good cards that popped up. That would probably help them quite a bit, because right now having Light is so difficult. Like, it kind of destroyed my weekend event. I tried to do aggro Light and it didn't work out. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and see you again in my future videos. Stay safe, people.